this prayer, it's just putting a blanket of protection and love over us. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so on the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. I'll get you up. Oh, that would be great. Yes, thanks. This is a part two. A lot of the part twos that we've done, this is part one of part two, I should say. A lot of the two parts we've done will be one parable broken into two, but I'll explain in a minute. Lord, we lift up this offering to you and we give it back to you, and we pause and we reflect on this is the day that you created. We're so glad to be a part of it. And we revel in it by thanking you and enjoying it to its fullness. Amen. So this is part one. The parable, we all know, or most of us would know of this parable where Jesus says, take the lower seat or the lower place. He goes on just after this, and we'll look at it next month, part two, and he kind of flips it on its head a little bit, and he then talks to the owner of the feast and says to the owner of the feast, when you invite people, invite this kind of person to your feast. Then you'll have treasures in heaven. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because these two parables work together. One is to the Lord. This first one is to the Lord. It's about what we receive from the Lord and our attitude about what we receive. So are we taking ownership over the good in our life? Or are we acknowledging that it's flowing from the divine? Where next month it'll be about letting that flow out to other people, other neighbours, and our attitude about that. So we're going to compare those two over here in the next two studies. So I'll begin. All parables, as you would know, have their natural sense, and then when we get into the spiritual sense of them, they really shift and change in a way that affirms the natural, but it shifts into this incredible place and goes and does things that we just never expected. And it's going to be the same with this. This is about humility versus the pride of life, and it goes places that you just wouldn't expect in the spiritual sense. So I'm just going to read here from Heaven and Hell, paragraph 158, about angels, their sense of self, their thoughts about themselves, their thoughts around who they are. And it says here, all people in heaven are kept free of their sense of self. And for me, I read sense of self as preoccupation with me. Not negative, it's just I'm preoccupied with me. My sense of self becomes negative when I fuel that with self-love. Self-ease. I think it's such a great name for them. Self-ease. But when you fuel it with self-love, this is where we get into trouble. But hey, it's all part of the process of growing and becoming a loving, evolved spiritual person, an advanced soul. It says here that all people are free from their sense of self. And to the extent that the Lord does keep them free, they enjoy love and wisdom. To the extent that they are not kept free, so it's our involvement here, we're kind of pulling ourselves back into thoughts of ourselves. However, they're caught up in love for themselves, and since all of them in heaven do love that sense of self and carry it with them, it changes the state, or the successive alterations do occur. Now, in a few more paragraphs, we're in 158, in the next few paragraphs, Whitmore goes on to explain how people in heaven just don't experience time the way we do. What is time for us really, though? It's just the change of the state of the sun, isn't it? The sun's either in the morning sky, it's in the midday sky, it's in the afternoon sky, or it's gone. And we sort of mark time by the change of the state of the sun. Well, in heaven, there's no time, but they mark the movement of the change of their states. And I'm enjoying bliss right now, loving people, and now I'm all worrying and caught up in myself and thinking about myself and caught up in love of self. And that's really at the crux of what this parable's trying to get through us. And the Lord's saying, here is the pathway out of the pain of loving self. Humility is the pathway out of the pain of loving self and all that the infliction that comes with it, as opposed to loving others. So let's begin. Is that okay? That we sort of start? Yep, let's begin. I'm going to read through this quickly and I want to stop and see what people get from it. Luke 14:7-11. And he put forth a parable to those that were bidden to a feast. And he marked how they had chosen out the chief rooms or seats, saying unto them, when you are bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honourable man than you be bidden of him. And he that bade you, and him that comes and says to you, give this man place, and you begin with shame to take a lower seat or room. But when you are bidden, go and sit in the lowest room, that when he that bade you comes, he may say unto you, friend, go up higher. Then shall you have worship in the presence of them that sit at meat with you. For whosoever exalts himself shall be abased, and he that humbles himself shall be exalted. What do we get from that parable?
The very natural external sense, I get a trust.
What's that?
At the very external sense, I get customs at the time.
Customs at the time, yes.
For example, if you were invited to a wedding today, you'd have a place set out in your mind. Whereas it seems in those days, you chose first in something like that.
Printing press wasn't available, so maybe they didn't sit and write down. No, maybe even card wasn't available.
So that was the first thing. The second thing that struck me was it just shows you how observant the Lord was. There must have been situations that he invited himself to know
Do you think this might even be where he turned the water into wine? Sort of, that could be, couldn't it?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
The material of our spiritual progress is all around us. It's just waiting, isn't it? The stuff to help us grow is all around us, just waiting. If we have eyes to see it, ears to see it, hear it. And I think you're right, Ian. The Lord was always drawing out a higher spiritual sense out of whatever he was doing. And then he instructed people from that. But it's just amazing how even the Lord must have wanted to bust out at times out of the language of correspondences and just kind of say, hey, look, I'm talking about your inner thought life here. But he doesn't. He stays with the dialogue and the narrative and just lets the text be what it is. And so then we come along thousands of years later, we read it in a very natural way, and we begin to adjust our life in a very natural way. But if you think about it, I've seen a lot of people harmed by overexerting humility, not understanding what's really going on in the spiritual principles. Isn't it?
They're trying too hard.
Well,
They're
working with all they've got, Chris. All they've got is a natural understanding of what the Lord says. And they just work with it, don't they? And they don't want to be unfaithful. So they go and step back and say, well, you go first in line, and it's not always about that. In fact, I'm convinced it's not anywhere near that.
No. Because you can have people like King David who comes out and says, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Let me at him. And some people might say that's arrogant, but that was dead set humility because he was just being himself in the Lord. So humility can look like arrogance sometimes.
With that example of David, where was David's focus? What was the focus of his
The
life?
Lord.
The Lord? You said too. Philistine versus this people of Israel. He wasn't even thinking about himself. He's saying, how dare this man stand against God? It has nothing to do with him at all. And I think humility is not about putting ourselves down. It's about making room for others. Now, ego doesn't like to make room for others. It's threatened. It likes to push its way forward and take control.
I was thinking the message here is start at the bottom and there's only one way to go.
Yeah. Unless you've got a bottomless pit, then you're in trouble. But that's a great point, Bev, is that just take the lowest place and there's nowhere but up.
You can only bring people one way.
Think about someone who struggles in the classroom. They're the lowest in the classroom. They often end up being the teacher's pet if they really work on themselves. Why?
Because they're teachable.
I was just thinking the teacher was impressed with the effort that they're making. For some people, they're just naturally really bright. There's no effort in it. They just do their thing. But this person who's at the bottom of and they make a real effort and they come up, they become the teacher's pet, don't they?
Sorry.
No.
It reminded me of, like, in some of the gospels, I run some gospels, and looking at one of the things that's helped people become leaders and start their own groups. Earlier on, I was like, this guy is very charismatic, he should be starting a gospel group. And then I got pulled up, like, I got a check on my spirit, and the Lord said, no, you. Because I ended up finding out he was really doing it for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of ego there, which is fine. I really love him. But it's just where that's where he's at. And the scripture says don't put someone in leadership who's young, in that sense, and the Lord hasn't had those breakings in their life. And then I was just reminded, Sister had coffee with someone, and she's ready to start a goals group. And she's been very naturally gifted, public speaking, but she has had breakings where she's not even confident to speak in front of people.
Wow.
And she's like, and I knew she was ready because her heart is really for people, not to be seen. She's really feeling she wants to help all her friends now. Yeah. She's doing it for the right reason. So that's what that's really humility.
I love that. I love what you're getting out of it. I don't like to throw what I get out of it too early in the piece. I like to almost hang on to it like a bit of, hopefully it becomes like a bit of cream at the end of the cake for you. There's a bit of discovery in it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to throw it out right at the beginning, and then we'll go through the reading. What I get out of this more than anything is I don't want to hold on too hard to my understanding of spiritual things. Today we're dealing with postmodernism. Postmodernism says it's my truth and there's your truth. I don't like that. I think that's missing the point. The emphasis is wrong. There's my understanding of truth. There's your understanding of truth. What happens if truth is absolute and eternal, and it is, but I've only got my understanding of it. You've only got yours. But if I'm willing to make room and keep moving towards truth, and you keep moving towards truth, guess what's going to happen? We're going to be moving together, closer and closer together towards a common goal. But when you get the postmodern idea, there's my truth and there's your truth, man, we're going in very different directions. It's division. And the writings are really clear. None of us can actually have truth. It's too absolute. It's too high. But the Lord gives us our sense of self and our sense of what truth is. And we just keep moving with it. And so for me, this parable's saying, Darren, especially as a teacher, just keep moving back and giving room for other people to have their sense of what the truth is. And keep making room together for the Lord. And somewhere along the line, we will be exalted together. But if I hold on too hard to my sense of what the truth is, I'm in for a big shock. You're smiling, Darren. Why? Go on, take it. Take over.
No. It's just what you're saying there. It always leads to conflict when you can only see your perspective.
Yes.
Like saying so. And in a sense, I can see that reflected in here where the wedding is that living truth.
Yes.
And
yes.
When we're bidden to it, we kind of being asked to put those to use, including good truth. But when we take the high place, it's our good truth. When we take the low place, it's God's good truth.
And it said that in the passage you read, didn't it? It said that when the angels or people are letting go of their sense of self, they're coming into more and more love and wisdom. But when they hold on to their sense of self, that slips. And, I mean, a wedding is made up of how many people? Yeah, becoming. Yeah, wow. Now, this is uniting rather than dividing. And if I hold on too hard to my sense of truth, what I'm going to do is divide people. I'm going to be the one who will be the divided the most. But it's our ego that wants to do that. You know, and that's the danger that I get into. So let's keep moving forward. Yeah, sure.
I'm very much want to
Yes, of course.
humility is not putting yourself down.
No.
Though if somebody compliments you, it becomes a dilemma as to how you handle the compliment.
Or a criticism.
Or
You know,
criticism.
how do you handle those two?
But you can see that the church should say, oh, well, it's not really me. You know what I mean?
I know, but it's like, well, the Lord had to work with you, so He's proud of you too, you know, like, come on, get yourself some credit.
Yeah.
You just don't want to, it's nitroglycerin, you don't want to blow yourself up. You don't want to puff yourself up. One of the things I do is I say, it's working. Thank you for the compliment. The spiritual process is working.
Thank you.
Thank you, it's working. It's not about me, it's about the spiritual process. And if you're, no, I know, I always love Chris coming because he helps, I think all of us coming bring a balance. We bring a balance. That's what the room is, making room for each other. Keep going, is there a little more unpacking there?
I mean, I mentioned to you on my Facebook, so the whole thing, once I saw it, having self-esteem, how you see yourself, you can't love yourself out as an individual. That's what I'm trying to say.
No.
Pride, managing pride amidst desire and truly humbleness. Micah 6, the sheer, what does it really require? You just come to know the most humble yourself.
Humble yourself.
That's, now you were right about it.
Walk humble.
That's the translation. Humble, but it's actually to humble yourself so as to be able to walk with them. That's what it actually says.
Make room for the divine.
Which is really taken
Yes, as long as you're doing it for
Not to be seen as
not
exalted.
to sin.
Yeah.
This is the part of the dilemma.
It's very good. There's a part, I don't know if it's anyone here where, because it's kind of related to this area where it's really the talking from the angels, and if anyone compliments them,
That's
they
right.
withdraw, and they can't accept that.
Paragraph 9 or 7, 8, 9 in the book. Really early on, he says it right up early, yeah.
And again, it's the same thing, but they're not doing it out of self-rejection, not doing it because the focus is going within the normal ways. I don't think there's
Pride in the process. How about we say it like that? It's a pride in the process rather than a pride in life. A pride in I want the process to be exalted because that's what helps you and you and you and me. When we can see the process and we get on and do it, that's if it's working in my life. Excellent.
It's more the internal thing. It's not so much external. It's an internal state where a person that's humble, they're so used to just drawing on the Lord's strength that that's what they do. They just draw on that, and so they're just abiding. They're not even trying. Because that's one thing I remember. It's like as a father, if my son or daughter they won a race and they got up and they're presenting the medals and everyone's cheering and they got up and said, I couldn't have done this. I don't take any of this. this is my dad, everything, I take nothing, I don't take nothing, I'd be like, what are you doing, man? Take the glory. Like, I'm proud of you right now, enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because God isn't like that. He's not opposed to that, you know?
And yet, to that, like, I love what you're saying, and yet to balance it, we all like it when someone says, I couldn't have done this without my trainer.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's humility, but not what's I did none of this, it's none of me. It's not,
Yeah,
hey, man, you got up every morning and climbed up the train. I was just coaching you, come on.
See, there's a false pride in that too.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm in line and I go, oh no, you go, I'm going to let you go because I'm more spiritual than you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really a false, where if I'm actually focusing on another person, I'm not even thinking about me at all. I'm not even in the equation. It's like, you've got 2 or 3 items, I've got a trolley, get in there, go, just go. You know, like, I mean, actually, you see that at Aldi's all the time. I see people saying, you've only got 2 items, you go before me. That's humility. That's saying this is a better way to do it. You'll be in and gone before I even get up to the cashier. Let's keep plugging away. So I don't mind, I'll read part 1 and then we'll go around that way and come back. Part 1, the advancing soul truly understands and even perceives that all life, especially that of one's own soul, is a gift. This perception causes them to abhor self-praise, or praising coming from others when in fact the Creator is worthy of such praise. And here's the quote, Aaron 8 and 9, if it help. Everyone in heaven knows and believes and even perceives that he wills and does nothing of good from himself, and that he thinks and believes nothing of truth from himself, but only from the divine, thus from the Lord. Also that good from himself is not good. Truth from himself is not truth, because these have in them no life from the divine. Moreover, the angels of the innermost heaven clearly perceive and feel the influx. And the more that they receive, the more they seem to themselves be in heaven. So they're addicted to receiving the influx of God. I don't want you praising them because you'll interrupt the process. It's like the cup saying, I'm glad you're enjoying the wine, but I'm not the wine. Or the other one that I really like, and I wrote, a conversation with the window, I wrote this years ago. This idea, I come into this house and there's this beautiful landscape before me, incredible landscape, and they put these big windows in so you can enjoy the landscape. And the window starts talking to me and it says, do you like my view? And a window's talking to me. And I say to the window, I do, but you're a window, you're not the view. Oh, I am the view. I frame it like no one else can frame it. And I realise there's no sense arguing with the window. Yes, it's a beautiful view. And this is like life. We are all a window to the divine. And there's nothing wrong with framing the divine. And someone says, that's fantastic. You go, yeah, look good, wasn't it? Thanks. The process is working. But the window shouldn't really ultimately take credit for the view. It can take credit for showing you the view. And I think that's the difference between humility and pride, or a false humility. So the angels are addicted to this process of feeling the influx. They love tapping into the zone. They know when they're in it. And when something comes along and tries to throw them out of the zone, they don't like it. Stop praising this. You're getting me out of the zone here.
Can I just say this?
Yes?
I don't think it has to be instant. I have a feeling that somewhere else will analyse this. It's more about, as you think back on the day or on an episode, you are just grateful that it worked the way it did. At the time, you may not have been particularly conscious of the Lord, and somebody said, I really couldn't have done that without you, or whatever. And so you don't really think a lot about it, because we can't always engage our relationship with the Lord in a conscious way on a moment-by-moment basis.
Certainly not here on the earth.
No, not
here on the earth.
We can, sometimes even the angels, I see them sort of shrugging off
Yes.
what has been said to them more privately
Right.
then I do see them saying, I don't, you know, it's not me.
Yeah.
That's just,
What do you mean? He was running away. So it's you, come on.
they just thank you very much and move on with the process. They don't want anything interfering with the process. Yeah, that's my sense of it, Ian, is that they're tasting life. It's gushing into them. And then they start feeling something blocking it, and they don't want that block. So it's not a whole false humility sort of thing. It's just like, you're distracting me. I want to get on with what I was trying to do here. That's how I'm reading it anyway. But so this being the belief of the angels, they refuse all thanks for the good that they do and are displeased and withdraw if anyone attributes good to them. So I think we've commented. Does anyone else want to comment on that?
I think it's also worth considering that because Swedenborg flips from levels in and out and so quickly that we don't always know exactly where we're at when we're reading this type of thing. And this can be an appearance as well, because as we focus on the good and attributing it to someone other than the Lord, we're also changing state where those angels can be present.
Yes.
So it
Wow,
can
that's
be
a
an
good
appearance
point.
of us moving away from that state where those angels are present, because once we take our focus from the Lord, we can't be present with those angels anymore. So we can easily get caught in one view of them as different levels.
Look, heaven would be boring if there wasn't change of states, wouldn't it?
Going back to where you said before about the sun,
The sun moving in the sky is our sense
and
of time.
Swedenborg tells us that the sun moves according to our change of state in heaven. So our perception of where the sun is
Related.
is related to the state we're in.
It goes on to say that not that the sun really moves,
Exactly.
but that we're moving.
Our relationship to
Yeah.
it. So again, it's a perception.
Wow, that's good. Thanks, Darren. That's great. Well, we'll get your wife maybe to read the next bit for us then. Peace.
Other things, the Lord God will fill the soul with the light of the body. Secret of heaven, a dinner should suffer or feast. The good of the journey in which there is growth and dwelling of Christ with them, so that it is here described and made clearly manifest that the recompense is in the good itself, because in this is the law, for it said, so be recompensed in the revelation of the just.
Excellent. Thank you. So, the recompense. The ego is always looking for the reward. This world functions that way. You have to. You know, how much are you going to give me an hour to do this job? That's important. Important part of the process. But what the advancing soul discovers, much to our shock, it's like I heard Jordan Peterson say the other day. We've lied to women, you know. Universities have lied to women in saying, because this was on Q&A, because we've told them that the happiness in life is going to be in this career or this or that. And, you know, they may find some fulfillment in it. But then he said, you know, happiness is found in relationships. And I thought, wow, and we haven't just lied to women. We've lied to everyone. The world lies to us. It says this is where you're going to find your happiness. And it will always be connected to the ego. But what the advancing soul discovers is where happiness really lies. Happiness is not an effect or affect. It's a state. It's a choice. And you only enter that choice when you put others first. Not in a putting myself down way, but moving back and creating room for others and letting them experience the joy. That's the recompense that he's talking about. He says, do this. Don't worry about getting an earthly reward. You'll get your reward in the resurrection. In other places it says, when you pray, hide yourself in a cupboard. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Don't look for the praises of men. But that's next month. I'm getting ahead. Versus the praises of men versus the praises of God. But the point I just wanted to focus on here was, where humility is about armouring yourself against things and actually creating room for blessings. Not hammering yourself down into the ground until you're just a dog or a piece of stain on the ground or something. It's not what humility is about. It's about creating room for the Lord to bless your life. Okay. You want to keep reading, or move on, or you going to read the next one?
Number 5. Those who strive to do good of themselves because the Lord has so commanded are they who at length receive this good, and who, being afterwards instructed, acknowledge with faith that all good is from the Lord. And they are then so averse to self-merit that when they merely think of it, they grow sad and perceive that blessedness and happiness to be proportionately diminished.
Wow. Comments on that one?
That's what I meant before. I'm not a fraction.
Right. You look back and you have sadness. Yeah.
I merely think of it. You can see yourself in different situations. And if you see your problem to it, and you feel sad, feel sorry, you're pushing yourself.
And sad is not blessedness. It leads back to blessedness. But sad is not the state the Lord wants us to be in. So they're discovering that the faith of acknowledging the Lord here, that's the key for me. It's like Chris is saying, we're not, oh, I couldn't do anything. It's a faith acknowledgement, I'm glad I was able to do this, but actually I know the divine gave me the strength to do it. It's just an acknowledgement, a faith acknowledgement. And when we stop doing that, we stop tapping in. And that's when we reflect back, as you say, and go, I was doing so well, and then I just seemed to hit this down. And I can see the connection in there between the down, and I was getting all caught up in myself. What do people think of me? How do I look? He said that, she did this about me. And happiness starts to diminish. But when your focus is on about creating room for others, you've got this armour on. People can criticise and you go, yeah, whatever. Or they can praise you and you go, yeah, whatever. And you just get on with it. You've got this room, and your blessedness actually increases. And that's the parable saying, what are you doing down there? Move up. There's that honouring, that exalting. That's that inner state of coming into blessedness.
I think what is very true in that we're not aware, like the parable of the goats and sheep. Jesus said, you guys come. You did this, you did that. They're like, huh? Didn't we do that? They weren't aware. Like, we're always processing things in the mind. That's generally a good sign that we're not doing it from the wellspring. It's just very natural for us.
Yes.
It's a conscious, it's principles, it's all hard work. It's, where the letter of the law kills, the spirit out of your flow rivers. That's very natural. Not even aware when you're doing stuff.
That hard stuff you're talking about, Chris, is really, I think we would call that reformation as opposed to regeneration. It's where you've got to see what you're doing wrong, but the answer does not lie in focusing on what you're doing wrong. You then leave that behind and you just get a flow of doing what's right.
But even then, like even Paul said, I don't even search myself. And the Lord searched him. So even that you get so introspective itself again.
Bingo. Self-reflection, I think I even write that here. I write that in one of the next month. That self-reflection can be another form of self-focus.
Yeah. But when the Lord's, then you just go with it. The Lord's putting his finger on it. Okay.
He will put his finger on it at times, though, and it can be a bit hard at times.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't want people to think that it's all skiing downhill and bliss. There is some periods where he puts his finger on it, it's like, oh!
Yeah.
But because it's the Lord, Chris, it's... you were the one who said to me 20-something years ago, did I? Only the Lord can cut you up in 1,000 pieces and you thank him for it. You don't remember saying that, do you? And your point was, because I'm stuck in my head with, God loves us. So when he's correcting us, it's always love. It stings a little, but it builds you up and makes you stronger. When ego puts you down, it just grinds you to utter dust. Fall on the rock and break, or the rock will crush you to utter dust. So, when the Lord does it, it does sting a little, but he always very quickly picks you back up and lifts you back up, doesn't he? Yeah. So we're going to have these moments where it stings. But if you've gone on year after year after year dragging yourself through the mud of shame and putting yourself down, something's wrong there.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with that process.
I suppose I'm really... I used to go to church and they were always, it's not me. And it's just like, I got sick of hearing it. It's like, come on, this is just ridiculous, it's so false,
Yes.
Everyone was trying too hard to be humble.
Yeah.
I think we've got to, when we are humble, that we do have to act like, you know, like when we said talking about reflecting, I think we've got to reflect on the things that we acknowledge with the wrong to do and try and better ourselves. But also reflect on the things that we did that were good
and be thankful. Thank the Lord, but not in a not in a religious way.
No, I did. Well, of course they had to do it because that's the Lord works in our physical body. Yes, he helped and just acknowledged that it was with the Lord's help.
Can I comment on that too? Because Renee and I were looking a little bit into positive psychology. Have you heard of that? Positive psychology? It's like NLP, or you did it, yeah. Psychology was all about focusing on averages. So the example I heard was 4 out of 5 people that go to Harvard University are depressed and hate their studies. So psychology looks at it and says averages. Well, the average person is depressed at going to university, so that's normal. Positive psychology comes along and says, hang on, we're focusing on the negative here. Let's focus on why the one person was having a positive experience and build a psychology around that. So when they went to places like, they spent 12 years studying Harvard University students, and they found people in Africa and that looked at going to university as a privilege, a challenge, and they all had a positive attitude about it. So in the West, you would say, oh man, this is just dragging me down, I can't be with my friends, the study is hard, I'm failing at this, I'm not doing so well. So the point was, the key to success there, to happiness in that situation, was attitude. And this is it, man. When we look back and we go, I'm really grateful, Lord, that you helped me get this right. You are building the right attitude. You're creating, and what happens is you're creating more opportunity in the future to get it right, and you become more observant of opportunities to get it right. When you're down on yourself all the time, you're actually observing more opportunities where you're going to be down on yourself in the future. Positive people are happy, therefore they are successful, not the other way around. They're happy and they identify opportunities of success that other people don't. They identify opportunities. That's the key, because they're happy. And I think this is a big part of what humility is about. It's just saying, hey, I'm glad that I'm achieving this with my life, but I'm going to take a moment to be thankful and grateful and acknowledge the divine in it. And it's a balance, isn't it, Chris? It's a balance. I'm doing this, not you. But I'm thankful, Lord, that you're helping me do this. And so that's that attitude where you're going to suddenly spot more opportunities. Is that okay? I just wanted to comment on positive psychology there for a moment.
I have a friend who, his daughter is a Christian. His uncle is a pastor. But he doesn't believe God. Whenever people told him something about the faith of God, he always responds in this way: I hold the positive attitude, and that is, I believe that is superior. I believe there is a God, but I don't believe that God is what you said. Since I hold this positive attitude, that is the God standard. I believe I'm safe.
Okay.
People like this establish a so-called theory. They created their theory.
Yes.
From their mind.
Yeah.
They don't have any guidance.
No higher revelation.
No, I don't think they have any enlightenment from high. But I don't know. Possibly this person or the person like this read some literature, read some book. After reading this book, they received, accepted their theory or their implication. Then they believe this is my attitude. I will keep my attitude toward the end. It's very hard. they don't know there's a God. Actually, everything we do is coming from, is under the guidance from the God.
Yeah.
Because they don't know this, they refuse to accept any information about there's a God. God is hearing us. It's very hard.
There can be good and bad in that too, one. Religion has done a lot of harm in the name of God too. So I think you said it well, God's ultimately in control and watching over it. And the time will come where he will reveal himself to that person. But he's waiting. He's waiting for where it's going to do the least harm and the most good. And all we can do is offer our understanding and leave it with other people, I think, in that situation. Offer it, and they say, I don't want to know, that's okay. Offer our understanding and then leave it at that. Yeah. But it hurts sometimes, doesn't it? You want to help people.
Yeah, the problem is many people have some type of the attitude similar to this. I think the key point is they focus on their self.
Well said. At the end of the day,
Focus on their self.
At the end of the day, what separates a good work from a not good work, they could look identical, but one, the person's going, well, I'm just doing what I did, and it's really the Lord in control. And the other one's going, I'm just so much better than everyone else. I did it my way, I did this. And they're polluting good work. With ego and self. So that's a very good point. Yeah. All right, so the happiness is affected. They acknowledge faith, by faith that the Lord is one in control, and then they look back and they realize that they were either in self-merit or they were just doing good for good's sake. So the next quote there, Bev, do you want to read quite different?
Quite different is it with those people who do not do this, but lead a life of evil, teaching and professing that in faith alone there is salvation. People of this character are not aware that such a good is possible. Good life, I should mention.
Yeah.
And wonderful to say, as has been given me to know from much experience. In the other life, these same people desire to merit heaven on account of whatever good deeds they reveal. Because then, from the first time, are they aware that in faith separated from charity, there is no salvation. These are the people of whom the Lord says in Matthew, they will say to me in that day, Lord, have we not prophesied by thy name, and by thy name cast out demons, and in thy name done many mighty works? But then will I confess unto them, I know you not, depart from me, ye that work iniquity.
There's that scripture that you were talking about, Chris. We'll keep going, but just quickly, it's almost like someone says, I'm using the Telstra network, and they're hacking or something, and they're doing some great hack, and then later on they want to go, but I use Telstra, like somehow that makes it okay, and these people here are doing things in the name of the Lord, and there's power, it's working. Didn't we cast out demons? Didn't we heal us? Did we do these things? And the Lord's going, yes, but you weren't following my call to love people. It was all about you, how you looked. You cast out demons, you did this, you were really building your name, not mine. Using my name to build your own, like a hack.
You can see that, can't you? Like, Jesus said you'll know them by their fruit.
Yes.
And you can see it. You can see people get up, like Prince still talking, people talking, and everyone's humble. You can see the Lord in people's lives. It's very natural. But then you might have some preacher, and he might be saying the same, but there's something off. There's an arrogance, something's coming through. And the fruit's not good. He's biting into that apple. It's like, oh, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, because it's the essence we're drawing on that people taste. And they can see, they can taste that fruit.
Yes.
That humility, or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's good, Chris. That's a good example.
I think there's a lot of touches on there in that passage from Matthew. in that very external sense, it's saying in the name of the Lord. That's all it is, a name. But when we get into the deeper meaning of that, the name of it is the quality of it. So we're operating from the quality of the Lord. We can't do that. We haven't got that. We only get that through Him. So when we're doing it from the quality of the Lord and by that quality, which is that love and wisdom, then we can't do it from ourselves. When we're just thinking about the name, it's very external and it's taken advantage.
Such a good point you bring up there, Darren. Yes. Okay, keep plugging in there. We push on to the next bit.
Bidden, pouring into our light of knowledge. Lord longs to give peace and joy to the soul. He longs to bring us into a state where our soul is feasting on the true delights of life. Love and wisdom are on His menu. Further, if we advance too fast, then the harm Conscience is a new will and a new understanding from the Lord. Thus, it is the Lord's presence in the person. And this the nearer in proportion as the person is in the affection of good and truth. The Lord's presence is nearer than in proportion as the person is in the affection of good and truth. It doesn't come to temptation. The reason is that the use and falsehoods of which in the person temper for the good and truth reason they cannot endure.
Go on to the bottom and then we'll talk about this.
Soul has learned the discipline of waiting on the Lord. When we take the young seat, we are creating room and silence for the God to lead us into quiet paths. And we let our ego take charge. We always take care of God's comprehension, growth and good, manifesting in the life of the soul. Practice the feeling of His first as our soul comes, giving our ability to be the Lord of our soul.
How about that passage, Secret of Heaven, it's 4299? That's just tremendous, isn't it? You know, like, the Lord wants to be near to us, but He doesn't want us to suffer the exposing of what's inside us too quickly. It's a process. He wants to bring these things to the surface. You know, I'm going to quickly give you an example. There's this guy, and he wrote this brilliant book. He was burnt over 2/3 of his body. 3rd-degree burn. So they had to graft off what was left. And he was like 18 months, 2 years in hospital. And the nurses would come in and spend hours peeling the bandages off and putting them back on. And he reflected back. Part of the reason he wrote this book, he was reflecting back on that time when he was in hospital. And his focus was, I just wish they would have come in. Darn well ripped the things off quicker and put it back on. I spent in agony hours every day, though, peeling those bandages off. And he had this real epiphany when he had the opportunity to talk to some of the nurses that were actually involved in this process. Years later, he was talking to them about it, you know, and the nurse says, you know, I'm glad you brought this up because there's a whole level of suffering us nurses go. When we're peeling, one of the reasons we go so slow is we just don't want to inflict this pain upon you. And his whole mind opened up. He was just wanting them to tear the things off and get the pain over with. And they were going through suffering, wanting to slow the process down because they were suffering, trying to make it less painful for him. And he just shifted his thinking there. And he realized that there's always more than we can see in a process. And here, the Lord could just snap his fingers and wave his Harry Potter wand and just make us spiritual people. No. It just doesn't work that way. That's why He gives us a long life if we're blessed. Because He wants to bring us into maturity with as least suffering, really, as possible. Really? Come on, you know, maybe God just wants to get on with it. No. If that was the Lord's will, heaven would be a place of suffering. But the Lord knows that there's going to be suffering for us in this process. So He tries to set up the best environment for us to have this stuff come to the surface, dealt with, and then we grow into more good and true. Is that? I'd like people to take over and challenge that, or disagree, or agree, or whatever. But what do we think of that idea?
In the story you told, removing the bandage, there's another analogy in there as well. In that, if they take those bandages off too quick, they'll do more damage to the tender skin underneath. So it's, even though the motivation there was stated to be because they want to do it as gentle as possible, it's kind of like separating the tear. It's got to be done in a way that doesn't damage the wound that's already there.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful
So that
point.
we've got to look at sometimes this is a long drawn out process because the Lord has to maintain as much of what can be used to lead towards Him and not damage it while the evil is being removed. Because a lot of our natural self can be led by the Lord and that can't be damaged, else we can't grow.
Okay, question. Why might I add this passage in at this point? When I think about the connection back to the parable itself. What might be the connection here? We've gone from taking a lower seat to principles of not suffering too much in temptation. What's the connection here? What might be the connection here?
Well, I think you're very vulnerable. Like, when you're used to drawing on the Lord's strength, you just do it without even realizing because you had a break into God in life. When you're not doing that anymore, temptation can fall very easily because you're not drawing on that strength, that natural strength it's coming into. So, whereas before you wouldn't even glance at something or whatever, now all of a sudden things are getting your attention because the lowest place, even in nature, the water goes to the lowest place. That's why the sea has the most amount of water. Mountaintops, which symbolic ego, doesn't collect the water.
Or great experiences in your life. You're right. Mountains can represent ego or love for God. You can have a great mountain experience with the Lord, like Moses. But you can't live there, can you?
No, but the water, even for trees, water will go to the lowest point. And the trees get very big because the roots get on the water.
Yes. Yeah.
The lowest point.
Yes.
Whereas trees on mountaintops are not very tall. No?
They may not be getting the same. Yeah, it's a good point, Chris. It's a very good point, Chris. I wasn't going anywhere in that direction, but that was lovely. I'm so glad I asked. It has to do with, this parable is all about attitude, isn't it? The parable is trying to get us to shift our attitude. Now, when you look at all the processes you go through, you can have an attitude of, why, Lord? Why am I going through this? Or you can have a trusting attitude that says, the Lord is working it all for good. There's some good. I don't quite know what the good is here, but it's working towards good. And I'm excited about what God's doing in my life. I'm excited about where I'm going. I have this right attitude. And that's why I put this passage in here to say, hey, sometimes we would like to cross the wilderness in 40 days like it should have been, and we find ourselves spending 40 years. Well, I trust that if you've got the right attitude, that wilderness is a promised land. Get what I'm saying? It's where you need to be to get the richest life you can have. You don't want to stay there, but it's about attitude. If we have this right attitude, we are in the lowest place when we have the right attitude. We're giving the Lord room. I'm not assuming I've got the best understanding. You've got great understanding. I'm not assuming that I'm right and you're wrong. I'm not assuming that I'm good and you're bad. That's creating those room and moving down to the lower seat. Let's keep going. Chris, you want to read the wedding?
Wedding, the actualization of one's convictions, those moments where we live and love the truth. Let us rejoice and exalt and give glory to Him, for the Lamb's wedding has come. It signifies joy of soul and heart, and the consequent glorification of the Lord, that henceforth there may be effected a full marriage of Himself with the church.
Okay, so question. Why do you get invited to a wedding?
I think it is because we are getting connected to the Lord.
He gives a great spiritual answer. I was just meaning naturally, that's such a good answer. That is a great answer. But someone invites you to a wedding, what are they wanting from you? Your presents? Yeah. No, they're wanting your presents, not your presents. They want you to come and join in the celebration. In this parable, if you take the high seat and you get pushed down to a lower seat, what did he say? We'll talk about it? Yeah, we'll go on to it. We'll come back to it. Is it a good... You're coming to a wedding to celebrate, right? But if you get pushed down to a lower seat, is that a nice experience? It's kind of frustrating the whole purpose of what you're even coming to the wedding for, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, thank you. That was a great answer, though. The wedding here is talking about connecting with the Lord. That's so good. You can do Holy Supper next family service. You nailed it. All right, Christian, want to read the next one too?
Habits that have formed into lifelong character traits, to settling into a certain ideology.
Ooh, don't rush that. Read it again. To sit. Where you sit at the wedding feast.
Habits that have formed into lifelong character traits, settling into a certain ideology.
Okay.
The word sit is used because sitting means remaining in a state. For movement from one place to another means changes of state involving in human.
How does that change the parable? Remember, it said heaven would be pretty boring if it was always the same state. What do the Gospels, what do the epistles say about heaven? Ever, unfolding light, ever increasing joy, unending happiness. What does Amazing Grace say? When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining like the sun. 10,000 years. Heaven is meant to be ever-changing states into greater joy and life. He who humbles himself shall be, but he who exalts himself shall be. Heaven's not about being debased. There's a lot in this parable, isn't there? The Lord's saying, up is down and down is up. The way of the world is not the way of heaven. I want you to be people that really look out for each other and love each other. That's how you're going to know you're my people. It's a different philosophy, a different ideology of how a kingdom should or a government should run, isn't it? Very different. Isn't that amazing? Changing a state. When you get too seated in a place, you can't, you're stuck.
What comes to mind for me is where Jesus said, you can't put new wine into an old wine.
Oh, yes.
When people are just so set.
What happens if you put new wine?
Because it ferments, the wine ferments and will burst. It can't handle that. It'll pop it open.
Amen.
But a new wine skin will be flexible and adjust around the new wine as it's fermenting and stuff.
Based on that, what would be a primary quality of the new wine?
To hold the Holy Spirit, what the Holy Spirit's doing. In a church or in a person.
The harm of the pride of life. What might be the quality that the new wineskin has? Real humility.
Yeah, well, it's flexible, isn't it?
It contains the divine. Humility is the way to be safe, protected, and to create room for blessings and delight. Thanks for bringing that up, because there's nothing nicer than be with a friend and have a meal and maybe a glass of wine or something. It's just a celebration, isn't it?
That's it, because the scripture says the Lord's doing a new thing. He's always doing new things. That's why I love listening to new music, because I know how easy it is to get set in one style of music. So I felt like the Holy Spirit said years ago, Chris, always expose yourself to new music and learn to love the new. And so I began to just listen to, on indie stations, all the new stuff coming through. And I really began to love the new stuff, the new sounds, because it's like sort of training me to see the new as a good thing.
What about the old? Have you lost?
No, the old's still good. I still love my classics, because the Lord said I bring out the old and the new.
Well, that's what I was thinking of. So the scribe who is instructed in the kingdom of God is like a householder who brings out of his household old and new.
But a lot of times, sadly, a lot of churches only bring forth the old.
Tradition and religiosity.
Or some are so trendy they only bring forth the new and don't honour the old, so they're both a trap,
That's a trap, That's not honouring the old. That's good too, Okay, so Russell, would you read for us an honourable man?
An honourable man. Those principles within the advancing soul that are being led by the Lord's love. When the divine truth is treated of in the word, it is called glory. And when the divine good is treated of it, it's called honour.
So, do you remember, why would I might be mentioning an honourable man? Do you remember what the parable said? Lest a more honourable man come along and you have to push your way down, you're abased. So this is, again, the parable is actually saying, make room for the divine. Open up for divine good. Flow in. Want to read another one, Russell?
Yeah, the one who bids the Lord high knowledge and love calling us into life, a higher calling.
So this parable today, where does it fit? What we just read then. The very message of the parable itself is calling out to us. It's bidding us. It's instructing us. Every time the word opens and instructs us, it's the Lord bidding us into wedding feast, something really exciting is going to happen in your life. But just make sure that you put yourself in a position to receive it. How many times have people come across anomalies in the Bible and it's ruined their faith instead of seeing it's actually an opportunity for the divine to reveal something? They found an anomaly and they've gone, it's all rubbish.
And they probably can't be truly seeking.
Not
True.
They're a follower, not a seeker. Yeah. I think the Lord experienced that when he had one sermon. He had 70 disciples walk away from him in one sermon. And he turned to the 12 and said, you going too? So, they weren't really seeking, were they? No. But this is it. Thank you, Bev. Another quality of humility is seeking. Seeking for more good. For others, rather than yourself. Okay, Juan, do you want to read, give this man place?
Give this man place, new life breaking forth in the conscience that causes discomfort. The advancing soul allows inner peace to be the compass of the heart. When peace within the soul is lost, the advancing soul is quick to
examine. That should be that was my error. That should be examine.
To examine what has arisen to interrupt the feast. Perhaps the ego is once again surpassing its authority and claiming to be the author of good.
Thoughts on that?
Ego. So everyone has ego.
Oh yeah, we all have ego, mind. We all have a sense of...
Even the angel in the highest heaven has ego.
Yeah. If they didn't have that, they would cease to exist.
So, because I'm reading the part, the book of parts, I'm thinking,
The part.
yes, when Lord is coming on the earth, the angels in the highest heaven have their ego apparently exposed than before.
More exposed. More light. Because the Lord came to earth, more light was able to come into the heavens. Bingo. Is that okay, Ian?
When I read this paragraph, I was wondering,
What on earth is he talking about?
the ego, how strong the ego is.
Yes, the ego is strong. It needs to be strong, one. Think about it, right? There is only God. God is the only one alive. But the ego gives God a way to allow each one of us to exist. Now, an identity. That ego simply needs to be in its place. That's all. God doesn't want to destroy the ego. This is where the Buddhists slightly get it wrong. God doesn't want to destroy the ego. He wants to temper it so that it becomes the servant of higher things. And Swedenborg calls that the higher ego. In heaven we get a higher ego, a higher sense of self.
But this phenomenon caused me to think another question.
Yes.
When Lord comes down to the earth, before he came down, he was in the highest position in the heaven. All the angels are influenced or controlled or governed by him. So their ego is under control or minimized or in a good order.
Minimize is a good word.
Okay, minimized.
Minimize.
But when Lord came down on earth, there's no Lord in the heaven, correct?
Well, I mean, the Lord is omnipotent, so he's in heaven and he's here on earth at the same time. Is that?
Yes, I believe so. I believe the Lord is here everywhere.
So where is heaven?
Only
Where is heaven?
heaven is in our heart.
Yes. So when the Lord's on earth, where's heaven? Still with him.
Still with him.
Still with him. He was Jehovah on earth.
Yeah, but when the heaven is inside him,
Yes.
is the heaven still inside of the angels?
Yes, and as he is bringing more light in his glorification process, the heavens are being filled with more light.
But why, when Lord came down to the earth, the ego of the angels are getting stronger and more apparently exposed? I don't understand this.
Well, and it might be good to talk about it later. It's not that they're getting stronger, it's that it's unveiling how strong it already was. The light simply exposed what was. The light didn't make their ego more stronger. Their ego was beginning to usurp, and that's why the Lord had to come. The heavens were in jeopardy. The Lord had to come or there could have been no salvation.
Ultimately, it is necessary for the angels to express their ego. So that the Lord coming down to the earth to fight not only against the hell, but also the ego of the heaven angels.
The writings say that. The writings say the Lord conquered the hells and reordered the heavens.
So that he can reorder, put all the things.
The ego goes back under the feet and love becomes the governor again. Ego is still there, but love becomes the captain, where the ego goes back under the feet. Yeah. Wonderful, good question. We better keep moving. We just better quickly plough on this last little bit. Let me do it. Here we go. All right, shame. Isn't this interesting? You know, the Lord wants it to be a positive experience, not shame. When you come into a wedding feast, he wants to join good and truth in you. He wants to fill your soul. Shame in the positive is a conviction coming from the truth. Sometimes we're going to have those little moments, Chris, where he taps on us and it stings a little. But in the negative, condemnation coming from evil spirits. One of the greatest traps for the soul warrior is the power of evil spirits to condemn. They are masterful at interpreting true conviction or repentance and instead thrusting the soul into a personal hell, it should be personal hell, of shame and suffering. Quote, evil spirits being united in hell want nothing more than to destroy us, not only as to spirit, that is to our love and faith, but as to our body as well. Heaven and Hell 292. Temptation with man are spiritual combats between evil spirits and good spirits, which combats are from those things and concerning those things which the man has done and thought and are in his memory. Evil spirits accuse and attack, but the good spirits excuse and defend. Isn't that wonderful? If you're getting thoughts coming up in you about things you've done in the past and you're feeling really, really bad, that's evil spirits. Okay? And I'm not saying don't, we do want to leave our past behind us. We also don't want to make our past our future, repeating mistakes. But you want to be able to put it down and give it no more energy and move on back into loving others and thinking about others. Evil spirits want you to revel in pain and shame of what you've done in the past. Quote, these are evil spirits who, as before said in times of temptation, call up a man's falsities and evils, and in fact, they call forth from his memory whatever he has thought and done from his infancy. Evil spirits do this with a skill and a malignity so great as to be indescribable. It is for this reason that the Lord gives us such pertinent instruction through this parable. When we learn to live from true humility, it becomes an impenetrable shield protecting us from evil accusations. Remember, humility is not being down on yourself. I think it was Mark Twain said, humility is not thinking little of yourself, it's thinking of yourself little. Less. Yes, not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Just don't give it energy, is what he's saying. Don't give it energy. So when we learn to live from true humility, it becomes an impenetrable shield protecting us from evil accusation. Remember, here it is. Remember, humility is not thinking little of yourself, but thinking of yourself little. In other words, focus on others, and the enemy cannot hit your ego. To go up higher, entrance into new delights of life. When we understand that ego sits in competition with the divine, we find delight in humility. As long as we are truly acknowledging the Lord as the source of all the goods and truths in our life, He can continue to flow those delights into our soul without harmful side effects. Harmful side effects? Yes. If you're taking credit for the good and truth in your life, then for the Lord to flow in more and empower you more is to set you up for pride. Pride always comes before a fall.
Can I have a question for this last statement?
Shall we read?
Humility is not thinking little of yourself, but thinking of yourself little. Humility, thinking little of yourself is to look down on yourself. Does that mean?
Thinking little of yourself is putting yourself down. I'm so bad. I did all these things. Look at that life I had. How could God ever love me and forgive me for that life I had? And putting yourself down.
So think of yourself little means don't think of yourself too much.
Don't think of yourself at all. Think about.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's a hard one to explain.
Yeah.
Don't think of yourself all the time. It's a bit like everybody wants to be on Facebook and look at me, I'm doing this. Don't be doing all of that. Sometimes we're interested to see certain things, but we don't want to see you all the time doing that. So
that's little. You make some room for yourself.
Thinking of yourself, not as many hours in the day. maybe just a couple of seconds.
It's like, all right, it's time to think of myself.
Let's use a really good example. It's like feeding your body. Should we stop and do that several times a day? Maybe even 4 or 5 times a day. Stop and feed your body. Should we sit and feed ourselves always? What's going to happen if we sit there and just eat, you never stop? You're going to harm yourself, aren't you?
Yeah. So you don't have to self-nurture. That's thinking yourself. Because if you don't, you become burnt out on religion trying to do everything.
Love yourself as you love others.
Yeah.
Or in other words, I let God love on me.
Yeah, we love because he first loved us. So that's selfish. Go to the Father to get your love, but then you become very unselfish as your cup gets full.
Exactly. Well said,
I
yeah.
think Swedenborg explains it way when he's talking about charity.
Yes.
And when we say charity starts at home, it kind of touches on that, because our first responsibility is to make ourselves a useful tool. And to do that, we need to make our family useful, or we need to secure everything so it's useful. And that's where we need to think of ourselves.
And there's only one difference, because these are identical, they're printed, Here's one person and there's another person, and they're both thinking about, getting their home life and everything in order. But this person's only thinking about that, and that's it. This one has, I want to get my life in order, because ultimately I'd also like to be of benefit to others. So there's a higher end in view. And that's the only difference, really.
But not always. Well, I think that you can care about anyone else, and that's just where you're at. But if you just go to the Lord and get love, then you'll just naturally be caring. It's not even a conscious thing.
Let me put it this way, right? One day, our kids are going to take over.
Yeah.
They're going to become the next prime ministers, the next leaders, the next police, the next doctors, the next lawyers, and maybe the next criminals. If your end in view is to do good for your family so you can eventually be some good to others, well, then you want your kids to grow up and be the politicians and the leaders and the doctors and lawyers, not the criminals.
Yeah.
So it can be as simple as just take care of your own. It can be that simple, but you still want that for the good of others. There's still a motivation for the good of others down the road. You know what I mean?
I know it's
otherwise, how are we any different to any of the elites?
But I just think a lot of it is just when you catch it. Some things just caught more than taught. When you catch the Lord's love, you don't need to be taught to be nice to people.
I used to say that, Chris.
It is, just do it.
I used to say that, but now I'm saying it's caught when it's taught properly. You teach it properly and they'll catch it.
Yeah,
it's caught when it's taught. And if they don't catch it, well, you've got nothing. No, I'm with you, mate. I'm with you, yeah. Okay, so that very last sentence says, and this is why the Lord finishes the parable with these words. He that humbles himself shall be exalted. So I'll read that again. When we truly acknowledge the Lord as a source of good and truth, he can continue to flow delights into our soul without it harming us. And this is why he finishes the parable by saying, he that humbles himself will be exalted with more goods and truths flowing in, more delights of life flowing in, more wedding feasting. You know, I know, and someone's not, someone who could make it today told me about a very, a family member who nobody wanted to invite to a wedding was coming up because they knew this person was going to make it all about them. Isn't it? And doesn't that sum the parable up nicely? They got so offended, they rang this person up and said, I never got invited to that wedding. And this person didn't know how to say it to him because if you got invited, you would have made it all about you. Let's pray. Come on, let's pray. Lord, we take great delight in the truth that each one of us is priceless in your eyes. Each one of us is not an afterthought, not an accident, not a, oops, hey, I've got another one. But each one of us is priceless in your eyes, Lord, and you would not have it any other way than that we exist and that we live in you and dwell in you and that we have happiness in life. We ask, Lord, from that understanding that we let go of fear about our needs and we learn to trust more, give more, care more, love like we've never been hurt, give like we've never had anything taken from us, and become the best versions of ourselves that we can so that others can be inspired to be more like you. Amen.